And Nikita, wonderful hands for. It's a right to the corner. One of his strike firsts in Pretoria. Korobete with a 6th try against the Springboks. He scored 3 in his last 3 against South Africa. Now 4 in 4. Right up to the short side. Really steps inside one. Chitsoff getting front foot ball for South Africa here. And plenty over on the left. Mbonambi tops the ball out of the back. Lost backwards. Destination. Quickly answer. We will stroll in. Fantastic trap from the Springboks. Getting up and challenging in the All Blacks. Absolute magic. Winning a line-out steal. Rico Ioane sells the dummy, then accelerates over the 10-metre mark. Naroa trying to get on the outside. Nicely tackled by Carreras, but the All Blacks still have the ball. Coles with a little tip on. Shannon Frizzell is there, and they go inside the 22. Barrett away to Naroa. Been in sparkling form for the Chiefs. Now a little touch up from Barrett. It's a good one. Coles is there, and Dane Coles scores the opening try. Great movement of the ball from the All Blacks.
You weren't playing the
Guys had to change a passing McKean.
I sense a bit of relief now.
No. I'll tell you what you are good at it, mate. South Africans are good at winning.
Eddie, you took a team to...
So you don't have to be a smart ass, mate.
Eddie, you took a team to...
You don't have to be a smart ass, mate. Welcome, everybody, to another installment of Rugby Space. We are back. And the Springboks are back. Gentlemen, thank you for joining. And obviously, as we would like to welcome everybody else that's not part of the conversation, feel free, guys, to join in anytime you want. You can just raise your hand and we'll also include you in the conversation itself. Without further ado, Vickers, Kofi, and Jade, thank you guys for joining, and obviously welcome to another installment. I'm going to start off with the Springboks. We've heard Eddie Jones' post-match debacle. Vickers, are you happy with what you saw in Pretoria on Saturday?
How's it, everyone? Yeah, absolutely, bro. I'm happy, very happy. Do you know what I saw from my side? I saw a couple of things in terms of obviously Dwayne being very influential in another game, which reminded me of the World Cup final. Mani Lobok was comfortable. He was comfortable. Obviously, we had a dominant forward, so going forward, it was good. So he was very comfortable. And I think I was actually happy to see Willie Leroux taking control of the back three once again. I mean, as in the past, as he's done in the past. But in all, for me, I was happy to see the way that the Springboks took the tactics that they used, because they went into that game using the kicking option as the second option instead of using it as the first option as we've seen them in the past. And I think from my side, I think that's what we wanted to see, something like that. And I think it's so important that it just gave us another idea and opinions about how the Springboks went.
No, fair enough. Kofi, your thoughts?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is nice and warm. Similar thought process. I thought, Box is super efficient. They did leave points on the table, of course, but in terms of converting the opportunities that they had, they definitely did that with aplomb. Very nice to see the guys on the outside get a lot of ball. Very nice to see them score tries also. Kirtley's obviously on a super roll, and I find it difficult to take him out, which is an exciting thing for South African rugby. And it's also just to note that whoever the next coach is, Nina was saying, I'm leaving some guys for you here, have a look. But also, terribly disappointed in what Australia had to offer. I did think they were unlucky with a call or two, which could have kept them in the game for a bit longer. But all in all, we saw the dominant team win. And that's probably what happens in a contest like that.
Dominant team, he says. Jade, last week we made our predictions. It was evenly balanced within the group. It was 3-3. I mean, are you happy with what you saw from the Springboks side?
Yeah, I'm happy with what I saw. Afternoon, guys. I said I'm happy with what I saw. I'm happy with the way O'Keefe officiated the game. Very consistent at the breakdown, consistent after his last performance. I think the paranoia of the forward pass crept into his game, and he pinned the Wallabies twice on the forward pass, which previously would have went on, and the team would have handled that. But good performance by the Boks. I like the way they kept ball in hand, not kicking everything away, keeping Australia guessing, especially when Australia tried the tactic of kicking deep. I'm not sure afterwards Australia didn't know who to send up as the kick chasers. They did well physically, fronted very, very well, left a lot of points out there. I can think of Peter Steph de Toit and a few other guys, passing on the inside of getting an offload away. It should have been higher score in that first half, especially. Curtly Arons, Caden Moody, well done. Vali had a normal Vali day, and then he just turned into be spectacular on the day. I like this range of passing. I think Mani settled in very, very well, considering, his first start at home. Started very, very well, slotted in very well. And then the takeaway from the game for me, lineouts, the Boks have a lot to work on in terms of their lineouts. I think Bongi had a real off game. I think his tail ball has a lot to work on, and maybe it's just a support and timing system, but yeah, sure they'll work on that. And the other thing is, the first time I got to see the boy Grant Williams at international level and being a substitute, whoa, he's scary. He's scary. He's very, very scary. But well done to the Boks. Well done. Good performance. They're scaring us now. The Bok team is scaring us.
They're scaring us, as he says. Gentlemen, obviously I did say we will just try and get into the nitty-gritty of the particular game. Vickers, what did you see in terms of what Eddie Jones was trying to give us on Saturday? What are the pointers that you thought, okay, well, this is interesting from Australia? Or did you see anything on that park last night?
Yeah, so firstly, condolences to the Hendrickson family. I think I heard yesterday that they've lost the Jaden, and they lost their father. But anyway, moving on. I think, look, if you were watching the game yesterday, I don't think anyone saw anything from Australia. Yeah. We literally saw nothing. We saw, for me, from number 1 to number 15, no one gave anything. I didn't see Tom Hoop was lost in the first couple of minutes. Michael was lost Michael was nowhere. James Slipper, with his knee injuries, almost played did he finish the game? I think played 70 minutes or something like that. For me, I didn't see anything. And I was so disappointed at the 8th man, I forgot his name, but I was so disappointed. The center pairing was nowhere. So for me, it felt like these guys didn't know what to do on the pitch. They were lost. And is it because they came up with a plan that to try and stop the Boks, and when the Boks didn't give them that same plan, they just folded? I don't know. But I couldn't put anything, because even the mauling was terrible. Even the for example, our stopping of our mauling was terrible. Usually teams go into the 22 and they try to play out the back. I mean, Hooper was playing out the back, but it was those fake molds, but there was nothing. There was no plan. So that's what, for me, I think I felt like I didn't see anything. And I mean, I could be wrong, but someone else can correct me. But for me, in terms of the Wallabies, I can't take anything from a game. For me, that game was more like a practice game for them, in terms of We just want to see if we can play rugby. That's how I mean. That's what I would see at that game. There was nothing that I picked up that there was tactical. This was the plan. I didn't see anything.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, Kofi, Eddie speaks about the first 20 minutes being critical for the Wallabies in that game. Yes, the first 20 minutes, I thought they were trying to spoil a lot, the Wallabies. They tried to contest, hence going back to Jade's comment about Monambi struggling in the line-out, where the Wallabies were trying to be disruptive in so many ways. But obviously that disruption ended after 20 minutes, and then the Springboks found their groove and basically took charge of the game. What are your thoughts regarding what Australia were trying to do on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned on Friday, was it, when we had the preview to the test match, is that Australia would need to find some kind of set-piece parity in order to compete with the Springboks. And for 20 minutes, if you can do that for 20 minutes, at the start of the game, it sets your game up very well. But the key thing with the Springboks is that you can't go forward. And once you start to do that, or once you start losing that parity, in the scrums or in the line-outs, whether it's with a more or anything of the sort, it becomes very difficult for you to get your own systems going while trying to stop what the other team is doing, I completely agree with what Pravik mentioned in terms of, trying to spoil. But they really didn't come with much on the table, to be quite honest. It felt like, what Pravik was saying is Eddie saying, listen, guys, show me what you have. I'm going to put a few leaders together, etc., but show me what you guys have, especially the guys that are there and thereabout. And I think an Australian coach, just via Eddie's reaction, an Australian coach playing in the Rugby Championship would have been far more angry, I think. But I think he knows also that this is not the finished product in terms of what he wants to work with, what he wants to take to the World Cup. If they were to start game one of the World Cup and they would start with 80% of this team, even 70% of this team, I would be completely surprised. They didn't show much. The one guy that Eddie mentioned scored a try as well, Marika Korobete, decent in his try-scoring efforts. But outside of that, really, wasn't really much to write home about. Had that forward pass been given, or had that play allowed to continue, 17-12, 17-14, at half-time or close to half-time, who knows, But we can't deal with who knows, to be quite honest. And if you don't settle the Bok forward pack on an ongoing basis, you're not going to survive the momentum that the Springboks play.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you're not going to survive. Jade spoke about, obviously, the forward passes element regarding Ben O'Keefe, etc. I mean, Jade, for you specifically, looking at guys like Will Skelton, who's been spoken about quite often and quite a lot on the social media as being one of the best locks in the world. I mean, what do you take of all the newcomers? Or actually, there's not even a newcomer. What do you take of all the players that were there? I mean, Australia were trying to use a heavy pack. What do you take from that heavy pack and what Australia was trying to do with that heavy pack on Saturday?
I don't know what they tried to do. I really don't know, because they didn't get a foothold in the game. Even in the first 20, I think the try they scored came from a turnover ball from the box line-out. And they just spinned it out wide. There was no time to set the ruck, so the box couldn't set on the D. And that's basically why they got that space out wide. But I don't think they tried anything in terms of the forwards. There was no, like we know Australia, quick ball, quick cleaners, quick to the ruck. There was absolutely none of that. Skelton was non-existent. I don't know, is it the pace of the game? Because let's be honest, the box did speed up the game a lot. So if it is the pace of the game, then I think we got a problem with Will Skelton here because it will only get quicker against Australia and Argentina, against New Zealand and Argentina, because they will speed up the game more. I'm hoping it's just a settling in time. If Skelton's not going to perform in the next 2 or 3 games, I'm going to be bold and say, well, then I might just move back to Richie Arnold, or the guy I hate the most, actually, Darcy Swain, because you give them an extra option in the lineup, and then you don't need to play Tom Hooper, then you can play Pete Samu, who will give you that more pace, and it's a better ball carrier than Hooper at the back. The problem for Australia yesterday, and the big problem I'm seeing for Australia, it's become an Eddie Jones show. What's Eddie going to do, and what's Eddie going to do? We're forgetting that there's 15 guys on the field that needs to pull their weight, and those 15 guys were nowhere. It took a kid to come to the bench on his debut, Carter Gordon, to spark something and give them some hope. So I think Eddie and Australia's just got to take a little bit of attention off of Eddie and focus more on the team. And then things might come together. Because if they don't, listen to me now, making this prediction now, Fiji knocks them in the World Cup.
Fair enough. But gents, I'm posing this for the three of you as well. I've taken time to look at what Dave Rennie had probably throughout of last season. They were running through about 20-odd injuries during Dave Rennie's era. But Eddie Jones has everyone fit. Okay, besides maybe Tupou, who could have also added some juice into his forward pack. But he's operating at least at 90-95% of what Australia can offer in terms of personnel, in terms of players on the park. And what has Eddie done with that is practically, I don't know, he's looked like someone who doesn't know what to do with his team. So I'm trying to compare what Dave Rennie, or is it too early for me to judge Dave Rennie last year and what he could do with the injuries, with the players that were out throughout of last season, losing by 1 point against Ireland, losing by 1 point against Wales. Games were close and tightly contested. Eddie Jones, he cops 40 on his first game. Vickers, what do you take of this?
Yeah, so I think, as you mentioned, I think it's too early to tell. For me, the way that I see it is that, as Jade said, there's too much going on around Eddie. It's coming in as like the savior. I don't know if I'm going to call it that, but the savior to Australian rugby. And then the time after Dave Rennie left. So for me, I don't think it's we can judge this performance. We just have to mention that the performance was very poor, but I don't think in terms of coaching we can look at it and say the coach. We didn't say anything from the coaching side. So I think it's just a matter of what do we understand about the performance. Yes, most of the players were poor, especially the guys that were trusted in those positions. But if I would look at in terms of Dave Rennie's coaching era and Eddie's coaching from England side coming back to Australia, I think for me it's too early to tell. I wouldn't be able to make a big call and say he's already in shambles or anything like that. I think it's still too early, and who knows? I think the most important now is for us to wait for next week and see after next weekend's game what really has transpired in the week, and from there we can start to make judgments what we see happen in the future. But in terms of an international coach making an impact, he would need at least about 3 months to get that squad very settled on what his views and thoughts of the game. You got it, gents?
Oh, sorry. I forgot that my mic was off. Sorry. Now we're going to move on to the box and obviously just have a look at who the standout players were, or what do you think Jacques Ninaba and Russ's game plan looks like? And are you happy with the particular game plan? Are you happy with the newcomers that put their hand up on Saturday? And obviously try and see. It's also good to see Lucanio Arm having a full 80 minutes with a heavily strapped knee. Dwayne Vermeulen all of a sudden looks quite sharp. PSTD kind of looked offish a little bit, but obviously he needs some more game time. I mean, a lot of players that come from Japan kind of look a tad bit off, but they need some game time to basically hit their straps. Kofi, what are your thoughts on basically the Springbok performance, and then who stood out for you within the game last night?
Is Kofi gone? What's going on?
I think it might be off.
Sorry. I did exactly the same thing as our host. I was chatting and the mute button was still on. My apologies. I thought South Africa was extremely efficient. I think at international level, it's all about converting pressure into points, which they did astutely. It's very difficult to pick out standout performers where everybody kind of did their jobs very well, or as they were allowed to do. But I thought Marvin Ori was very good. I see he's not traveling to New Zealand, if I'm not mistaken, with the likes of Alton and Ivan Roos, etc. I'm not sure what the thinking is behind there, but I like the new boy, or not so new boy, Jean Klein. I think Ireland made a big mistake. Let that guy go and come back to South Africa. I thought he was good. I think he's going to give the Locks even more trouble in terms of picking which one to go with to the World Cup. You've mentioned Dwayne Vermeulen, back looking sharp, looking young. Also, obviously, with the leadership skill, I thought that is important. I'm interested to see who's going to be the leader in New Zealand. With Visa looking like odds-on favorite to come back into that 8 jersey. But in so saying, that forward dominance gives the backline the platform to go ahead and throw the ball around a bit. And I like that from the Boks. I like that they could, throw it around a bit. It does help that they've got a fly half that can set them alight. It does help that there's a fly half that can pass left and right, 15, 20 meters with accuracy and on the fly. So when you play with that kind of trust, it also allows you to do what you want to do as a player, So all things considered, I thought the Boks did very well. But there are tougher challenges that lie ahead. Let us not look at this fixture as the fixture that's going to determine where the Rugby Championship goes to, because, we'll get there, but New Zealand won by effectively the same margin away from home.
Mm-hmm.
And also, let's not use this as a marker to see where the World Cup is going to go at the end of the year, because there's a lot of rugby to be played between now and then. So I think it's going to be exciting, but very nice to see the Springboks. And I didn't call this, by the way. I thought it would be an Australia win. But very nice to see the Springboks use the high foul to their advantage, play at a high tempo that the Australians couldn't match. And let's see what happens in New Zealand.
All right, fair enough. Jade, we're talking about obviously players that stood out. I think Manie Libbok was one of the standout players from Saturday's game, and you did mention a bit of Grant Williams earlier on. What do you think of Manie Libbok's performance on Saturday, and also who else stood out for you in Saturday's game?
Yeah, so I think the team, if we look at the team that was chosen, and if you look at it nicely, you'll see there was a lot of guys that was on form and playing good rugby. If you look at Andre Esterhuizen, was one of the top 12s in European rugby. You had Manie Libbok, who was arguably the best playoff in the URC, and you had the two young wingers. You had a Bok front row basically. Run-ons that would start. You had 2 months the locks in that team with Storm as lock. So you had a very, very good team in terms of form. Now, for me, Manie Libbok did very well yesterday. He had time, he showed patience, he showed good decision-making. I think it also helped that they had a guy next to him in Andre Esterhuizen that, if he played him short, he'd get over the advantage line. And then he could scan the situation and he could scan the next movement. That was actually ideally what you want as a 10. The other player that stood out for me, I know everybody was mentioned, was Marco van Staden. What a game he had at 6. What a game and what a turnaround for the guy being out of contract last year because of concussion issues. Coming back, bossing Michael Hooper, controlling the breakdown, taking the ball forward, running strong. I think he was one of the outstanding players for me. Andre Esterhuizen as well, the two wingers. Yeah, so I think overall, everybody in terms of the box played well. I think Bongi's loose play was okay, but he's taken up on that lineouts. And yeah, it was a solid performance. A lot of 7 and 8 out of 10s for the box.
7 and 8 out of 10s. That's massive. That's really big. RTVG. I think that's correct. You wanted to chime in?
Yeah, just a quick one. Hi everyone, my name is Enda. I'm from Ireland. Just a very quick one. 2 points just on Jade's point about Eddie Jones. I think that's exactly, like, even the clip we played at the beginning of today's space, I think that's exactly what Eddie wants. He wants us talking about Eddie and not about how poor Australia were. I think this is a tactic he definitely employed with when he was England coach as well. He wants the attention on him and not necessarily the attention on how poor they were, I think, in general. So I think even that clip at the end, I wouldn't be surprised if that was something. Now, maybe it's a bit outrageous to say, but I wouldn't be too surprised if that's something he thought through to say something that would grab the headline. So that would take a lot of the pressure off Australia. But just also in general on Australia's performance, I think, we can't judge too much on it. It is their opening game under his regime, so they could improve, they will improve. I think everybody does expect that. But just thought that was interesting on Eddie Jones. And just one quick question as well, just for the wider group. Do we know if Marvin Ori's transfer to France has been confirmed? I've heard a lot of rumours, but I don't know if it's been confirmed yet. I think he'd be a massive loss for the Stormers.
Oh, I haven't heard anything yet.
I know a guy who knows a guy who's married to married to X, Y, and Z, and 80% done.
Oh,
done, is it? Okay, yeah. That's a massive loss for me anyway.
You know a guy that's married to a guy and a girl everywhere. Anyway, moving on. Kofi, you're a backline person. Vuyo, you're a backline person yourself. What are your guys' thoughts with regards to Lukhanyo and the Esterhuizen combination in midfield? And your thoughts in terms of the wingers that played on Saturday? Aerially, they were pretty decent. In terms of linking up, they were pretty decent. And obviously the try scored. I mean, Arendse was phenomenal yesterday. Vuyo, I'm going to start with you. And then, actually, Kofi, your mic is on already. I see that you don't want to make any more mistakes. You might as well jump onto this one.
Yeah, no more mistakes, please. And you also said my name first, so I'm taking the liberty. I'm very good. Makes anybody who plays with him look. Listen, anybody who can play with in terms of in the midfield, will make them look good. I'm not saying Esterhuizen isn't good himself. I think he's always been a bulky player. He'll always get you over the advantage line. But he's a bit of a boss-tick, and if you yourself at 13 are also going to be a boss-tick, I'm not going to mention names, then it doesn't end up making the backline look like it's going forward. So the nice thing about Lukhanyo and the fact that he can play 12 and 13 and 14, mind you, is that he allows the ball to go and get outside to the wingers. And, I think as much as Esterhuizen went forward, you've got somebody at 13 who can also link with the outside backs. So from a combination perspective, yes, good. But Esterhuizen is not replacing Damien Dialembi. So the conversation should end there, if we're being honest effectively. So I really like the fact that was playing and he played 80 minutes. Yes, the aerial battle was good with the back three. And it's going to even have to be better, whoever's playing in those positions against the All Blacks. Mostly because I don't think South Africa will play as much rugby against New Zealand, and they'll back their defense more because New Zealand will tend to hold the ball a little bit more. So in terms of the aerial battle, yes, South Africa won that ping-pong battle, but also understanding the conditions a little bit better. Genuinely thought with Reece Hodge at 12, I genuinely thought that Australia might get the ascendancy in the aerial battle, but I was obviously proved very wrong in terms of that. I think Eddie's still going to search for a 12 that can kick, but also can and has to defend well, like we said on Friday. Of which two of those things I don't feel like Reece Hodge did well. So once again, like the South Africans were allowed to play to a vast for the vast majority of the game, but it's going to be a different battle in the next one.
Vickers, that midfield combination and the backline as a whole, I mean, your assessment of all the key elements with regards to defense, getting the ball to move around, linking up with the wingers and the fullback. I mean, Vili, I think it was quite conservative on Saturday. Not really the Vili that we like to know. I mean, we've gotten used to joining every backline move or from every set piece, etc. In terms of what you saw backline wise, I mean, you happy with what the Boks had put on display?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very happy with, as Kofi has mentioned, the combination, the center combination with I think Andre was decent. Lukanyo, guys, can we stop talking about Lukanyo as a 14 and remove that conversation? No, it can't. It can't happen. This guy is a center, and that's it. And he's brilliant at it. I think for me, that's why I was saying that it was good to see him play with those young wingers that we had. If you look at the first try, again, what we spoke about on Friday was the understanding of the defense. When Lukanyo was shutting, the wingers made the decision too late to shut, which created the space on the outside. And that's why it's going to be key that, obviously, going forward is for those wingers to understand Lukanyo, how he's reading the defense, which is what he does well with Mapimpi and Cheslin. I think if you look at the back three, all in all, with the basics that they did was enough, and it was great. It was great to see. I mean, obviously, scoring 3 tries doesn't come easy, but it's a matter of fact that you were there. That's why it is important that they gave those chances to those wingers. I think for me, looking at the 9 and 10 combination, I mean, don't quote me on this, guys, but I feel like it was unfair for Mani to play with a player like Kobus, but I wish Romani could play with like a Jade or even a Faf, because he will get so much more time on the ball based on how quick those players are getting to those breakdowns. Other than that, overall, I think our backs were pretty good. As I mentioned, Lukanyo is a 13. Any team would be wanting that guy on his team. Very good performance. I think, as Kofi's mentioned, obviously we won't keep the ball as much going forward. I doubt it will do the same, but it will be nice to see what they come up with in New Zealand.
Oh, nice to see what they come up in New Zealand. Jade, I want to pose a question. It could be a very tricky one, but depending on rugby knowledge and obviously some time in getting to watch what Free State Cheetahs used to do back in 2003, 2004, that period where Rassie was player coach and then eventually evolved to a full-time coach at the Cheetahs. That period of 2004 to 2007 or 8, the Cheetahs were quite phenomenal. And obviously we saw the different types of rugby that was played by the Cheetahs in nullifying a lot of the heavy forwards from the Blue Bulls. I mean, the Blue Bulls were also quite dominant at Currie Cup level, and the different styles that Rassie implemented then, I'm tending to see a similar pattern with regards to what's happening currently with the Springboks. I mean, having those very fast wings, big, heavy forwards, and obviously manipulate opposition in thinking that you're going to dominate with your forwards, and then obviously spread it out wide. I mean, I've looked at some of the numbers now and how the Springboks have transitioned from 2019 to 2023 in terms of spreading the ball more often than they used to previously. In 2018, 2019, they didn't really throw the ball around a lot, but now we're seeing that they're using those fast wingers, they're using the pace to manipulate opposition in this situation. What are your thoughts with regards to that transition from the Springboks now? I mean, the Springboks that we saw in 2018-19 to what Springboks we're seeing now and currently in this Rugby Championship?
Well, the problem is, I don't think it's so much Rassi's doing. I think the game of rugby, was transformed. I do also think that because the Springboks are playing right around the world, playing different game plans, playing amongst different cultures. Some guys are playing with big Fijian wings next to them, or they're used to, getting the ball out wide quickly. And it's a natural instinct from them because where they're playing, the Stormers also play a more expansive game. So I do also think that it's the players. The players have that, natural instinct now is to get the ball out wide or to get an offload out to keep the ball alive. That's what it's come to. Rassi is, if you've seen Rassi, all us people in Bloemfontein, they know Rassi. He's a guy that you think is mad. When he's walking, it looks like he's talking to himself. I think he's a guy that's constantly thinking about the game, how to develop the game, how to move on. The way the Springboks played yesterday, by moving the ball around, it's not the first time they've done it. I don't know if you remember, Vuyo and Phila, if you remember in 2015, they played against the All Blacks at Ellis Park, and it's the game where I think McCall scored in the last minute or so, but they did the same thing for 60 minutes, where they just kept the ball alive, they ran from deep, they never kicked into the kicking game that much, and the Boks had this in them. They did it against France last year as well. So it's something that there's a balance that Rassi had to get between his dominant pack and his kicking game that he can get, that strangle game that he can imply. But the running game has always been there. And I think also as a guy's instincts, like I said, and it's also Rassi keeping his cards very close to his chest and saying, okay, if you think I'm going to kick you and I'm going to kick the ball away, I've got this running game as well. So you need to be wary when you play me in this World Cup.
Fair enough. Vuyo, I see that you're agreeing quite a lot. RTVG, you care to share or chime in onto this particular point about how you're seeing the Springboks play going forward and also going into this World Cup?
Yeah, I'd have to say, I'm not surprised. I think there's a perception, certainly in this part of the world, in Ireland and maybe in the UK, that the Springboks play a very forward-dominated game. And they do, but they're absolutely capable, in my opinion, of throwing the ball around and playing that expensive game. And I think Rassi and Niambar would touch on this in some press conferences, that they're not just a forward-based team. But again, going back to yesterday, and it was probably, I know we'll eventually move on to the New Zealand game, but the old cliche that if you've no scrum, you don't stand a chance. And the Springboks scrum, I just felt like that just was the springboard, wasn't it, for all of their great attacking play, and that created that space for me. And I know we've spoken about the line out a bit, and it did kind of go astray a little bit. But I think, the scrum dominance was palpable and created a lot of those opportunities. And just one thing on the back three, I know Willie LaRue maybe didn't have his finest game, but let's talk about the Vodacom Bulls next season. They're going to have some back three. That's something I'm very excited about, being a massive URC fan. I think it's brilliant to see him come back. I know I'm maybe straying off here a little bit, but it's great to see him come back and commit 3 years to the Bulls. And what a back three to look forward to next season as well. But definitely agree. I think the Springboks are going to. It's not going to be the exact same tactics as the last World Cup. They are going to throw the ball around more. But the reason they can do that is because. Yeah. Sorry,
I thought you were done.
No, sorry. No, I was just going to say that the reason I think they can expand their game is because of that forward dominance. And we're talking about that being a Springboks B-side, I think, especially from an Irish perspective, that game made me incredibly nervous about the World Cup.
Yeah, I was going to say that, let's just say that Billy had a better game than the last 2 years. So I think from his performance, he could be happy with this. And guys, it's not a B team, man. Come on. Kitsoff is not a B team player. Bonham is not a B team player. Dwayne is not a B team player. And I mean, we're talking about Lucanio Arm being a B team player. I don't understand how we got there. Second stringers being told. We're told that these guys, the Springboks, are playing second stringers. Basically, the only thing we had to do is the 9 and 10 combination. I knew, 100%.
Half-baked. Half-baked. The words
No,
were half-baked from Eddie Jones, not B team.
Yeah, so in terms of preparation, but who wasn't half-baked? New Zealand was half-baked going into that game, their game. Well, Australia was half-baked going to that game because no one had practice games, or no one had that kind of situation in terms of test rugby preparation going into these games. So that's why I'm saying it's just, for me, I think the most important thing we have to understand when we talk about that kind of coaching and the kind of intensity that was needed in that game. I mean, some of the guys from Australia were blowing in that game. It goes to show, they were blowing. So it goes to show that these guys, look, guys, altitude is a thing, and it's not a lie. And people must stop thinking that it's not going to be a thing, because once the game starts going that fast, then you're starting to realize that, flip, I'm actually struggling in this game. And I think that's how that's how the part of how the Boks dominated that first 20 to 30 minutes was based on that. They ran everything. I mean, we didn't see any kick we didn't see any kick after the kickoff to exit. We just ran. Ran, and we found ourselves in the 10 meter, on their 10 meter. And then the next thing is that we're on the 10 meter, but we're going forward for a ball. So which means that the team that was meant to be waiting for a kick, there was no kick coming. So we had to make tackles.
Fair. All right. Now,
Vuyo, I have a question for you, Vuyo. I have regarding the altitude, right? And there's something that's puzzling me now. The Boks have a lot of European-based players, right? Now, that's a former Sevens player. When you went on tour and you came back to South Africa and you played a game at altitude, I know the Sevens camps are mostly based in the Western Cape, but I mean, when you have to come back and play on altitude, did you feel that adaptation into your game? Did you feel that you had to adapt? Because the Boks yesterday looked like, okay, they have been training at altitude for a while, but I mean, with a lot of players playing in Europe or so, how do you see that, that advantage of the Boks, the altitude tests? Do you think it's a factor, that those guys are not playing for the Bulls or for the Lions and are playing regularly in Pretoria? Or do you think your body can adapt to it quickly because you're used to it?
Yeah, it all depends on how you train. It all depends on how you approach your week. For example, we never trained at altitude. We were always down, obviously, in Stellenbosch. But the main thing that we knew, if you're going to altitude, your first session at altitude has to be the hardest session ever in terms of your fitness. You're running hard. You're doing everything at intensity pace so that you get used to the air, because you do blow when you get up there. Make an example of when I took the Kenyans to Table Mountain. It usually the hike usually takes about a 2 hour, 1.5 to 2 hours. These guys did it in like 55 minutes, because for them it was easy. For them it was easy because they know they are at altitude where they come from. So their lungs were much more adapted to the conditions. So altitude is a thing. For me in coaching, we started talking about, if I do go to play at altitude, that first session that we're going to have can't be like, come guys, let's throw the ball around, let's have a nice easy day. It has to be one of those harder sessions where the players go feel like, listen, I'm out, I'm done, I'm on my knees now. It almost like uses that advantage where you say, okay, now from here, we can start to train properly.
Fair enough. Okay. Jade, I wanted to ask one more question before we move on to the All Blacks and the Pumas. If you are Jacques Ninaba now, you are very happy, obviously, with what you saw on Saturday. Now, what would be your tactic going into New Zealand, seeing how New Zealand played against the Pumas? You are Jacques Ninaba, you are the coach. What are your tactics moving forward? Do you still run? Do you still focus just purely on defense? And obviously, what am I looking for now? And obviously plan on working on scraps, obviously pushing the All Blacks to making mistakes, grabbing the ball and trying to score tries from that? Or do you still go with your forward play and dominate, or do you put all three on the table and then see what comes out?
Well, it's a World Cup year, so I don't think he'll put all three on the table. There's no way he'll do it. But he won't move away from, his strengths. I think next week we'll see a lot of kicking. I think we'll see a lot of kicking next week again from both teams. Both teams like to kick. Don't look at the All Blacks like that. They like to kick the ball. So I don't think Ninaba would, go ahead with the same game plan. He will try to see something else again. He'll work a lot on his set pieces. I don't think he's too happy with his set pieces, especially his line-out, like I mentioned. What he will do is he'll play much more structured control game, try to suffocate the All Blacks and test that to see where they are, because let's be honest, the World Cup is between 4 teams and he's playing one of those teams next week. So both of those coaches would actually go into the game more. They'll go into a more tighter game, not so much expansive. I could be wrong. We could get another 33-all draw. But I think Ninaba this week would focus on his basics, focus on his set plays, getting back to what he was good at, trying to improve on that and trying to see where they are, in terms of this year. Because, last week's game or yesterday's game was a brand new lease of life in the box. It wasn't the same box that we seen last year. So I think maybe next week it will be again similar to what we seen last year, more kicking, box kicks, testing the aerial skills, testing the scrumming, trying to get a few penalties off New Zealand ball, testing the line or testing them more. So you'll go back to that next week. You'll be more close.
Fair enough, more close. Okay, moving on to the All Blacks and the Pumas. Last week we made our predictions, and a lot of people thought obviously the All Blacks would not come up on top. There were a lot of concerns and worries. Sticking with you, Jade, and then moving on to the other guys. Gents and ladies that are listening, feel free to join in anytime you want and also share your own views. Don't be shy. You can just put your hand up and we'll add you into the conversation. Now, going back to the All Blacks and the Pumas, last week we spoke about what the All Blacks chances looked like, and we were not really convinced if the All Blacks could pull it off in Mendoza, first time playing there, and they've played a lot of their rugby between Argentina and New Zealand, in Australia and New Zealand. So it's the first time going back since COVID, roughly. So it was a big test, for the All Blacks, but also for the Pumas at the same time, because, they've had a week and a half in terms of assembling and putting things together, which is not much. But the All Blacks came on top and they won by a significant margin. But maybe concerns might be in that second half, like they've had previously. Jade, what is your overall look of this current All Black team going forward and what you've seen now? Are you happy? Are you now more pleased with what you've seen from the All Blacks, seeing that you were quite worried about this current team?
Well, firstly, and I think our friend from Ireland would agree with us, that, the All Blacks has always been playing under Foster in periods of 20 minutes, 30 minutes, taking the game away from you. And they've always been known as being slow starters. Yesterday, the first half, they blitzed Argentina, similar to what they did last year against Ireland in the first test. They blitzed Ireland. And, it worked well for them, and they took the game away from Argentina. All being said so, Argentina were absolutely terrible in that first half, missing tackles. Defensively, they were torn apart. Few good things from the All Blacks. McKenzie looked like the rush defense doesn't really bother him that much because he likes to take the ball flat against the line. He likes to play like that. A lot of the guys down under will say he plays like a rugby league flower for rugby league, first five, as they would say. He did okay. The forward play was okay. The maul wasn't really a threat. They had how many lineouts on Argentina's try line, 5 or 6 lineouts where they didn't really get over the try line. The scrummaging was good, although Argentina's scrum has been wobbly for the past few years, so we don't know what to take out of that. It's been a good start. But there's a lot of work to be done. A lot of work to be done, because in that second half, they just went back to old habits again, missing tackles, looking all over the place at times at the breakdown. So it's a good start. They can build on this. We'll see next week how far they are. We'll see next week how far this All Black pack really is. I really want to apologize to the guy from Taranaki called Josh Lord. I doubted him. I didn't think he deserves his place in the team, but he looked fairly accomplished at lock yesterday. Fairly accomplished. And yeah, guys like Scott Barrett, Rico Ione, Jordy Barrett looked, outstanding. They took the game away from Argentina. So yeah, it's again those blitzes, those small glimpses in play where New Zealand take the game away from you. The first 20 minutes, 3 tries, game down. The test would be to see if they can do it for 80 minutes.
Fair enough. To our Irish mate, you've beaten the All Blacks in New Zealand. Obviously, you guys are still celebrating the last year's 360. What are your thoughts with what you saw from the All Blacks?
Very impressed. But first of all, just really, after such a brilliant game, I really enjoyed the Springbok game, and I was just really disappointed in Argentina's performance overall. It was just such an uncompetitive game after a couple of minutes, to be honest. You could just tell it wasn't going to be a contest. But overall, yeah, I just thought Argentina were just really poor, especially in the first half. They just kicked possession away. And the All Blacks were just absolutely dominant, weren't they? Their scrum was very impressive. But as Jade said, yeah, the Argentinian scrum has been under pressure of late, so it's not maybe too surprising. One disappointing thing as well is that the game next weekend is realistically going to be the decider for the competition, isn't it? But what a game we have in store, I think, absolutely. We'll really see where both teams are at. And the really exciting thing now, especially from a Springbok's perspective, is do New Zealand know what type of game plan they're going to play? Are they going to run the ball from their own 22, or are they going to kick possession and play the pressure game? We don't know. They'll probably play a more conservative game plan, but who knows? And I think that was probably a strike of genius, really, because by the Springboks, who knows? The All Blacks probably don't know what to expect, and the Springboks show that they can play both games really well. So definitely a really good game to look forward to, but overall a very disappointing game, I think, from a neutral's perspective. And we're all on next weekend, I'd say.
Fair enough. Going into next weekend, Vickers, I asked Jade if he was Jacques Nienaber going into next weekend against New Zealand, but I want you to be Ian Foster for once and move away from the green and gold. I mean, you're Ian Foster. You've had a very good game against Argentina. You're going against the world champions next weekend. I mean, the world champions, everyone that was sent away or sent to New Zealand a week prior, I mean, everyone who's on that list is guys that played in that final against England in 2019. This is definitely not a half-baked Springbok team the All Blacks are going to face. This is definitely not a Springbok B team. You are facing the A team, Umakoya team. How do you plan as Ian Foster going into this game? Do you play your first team with Abo, Sam Whitelocks, the Brody Retallics, etc.? How do you plan against this Springbok team?
Half-baked. Okay, so no, the thing is with the way that I would see if I would be Foster is going with exactly the same mindset that they had that first half against Argentina. The thing is with, I think one thing we also forget is that the New Zealand final for the Super Rugby ended I think it was 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. But that means that these guys had contact fitness, which is why I think that's how they blew Argentina away in that game, because of the contact. They were so used to the contact coming off the Super Rugby straight into an international game. That's why the collisions were much harder. That's why they obviously Argentina missed a couple of tackles, because for them that contact hadn't come recently. But if I was Ian Foster going to the same game, to next week's game, I would do exactly the same what I did. The only thing probably would like to see is if what the changes that he's going to make. I would definitely put Sam in there. I would definitely go with. I would keep D-Mac at 10. I know Moana, obviously, he's probably his number one choice. I'll keep D-Mac at 10 and Bowden at 15. And the center combination, I think we're pretty happy with the center combination. For us, for basically for the Springboks going into that game, if we look at the guys that weren't selected for this team, that means that one of the twins will be in the team. That means that Jesse Krill will probably start at 30, and obviously Damon Dialende, Mapimpi at 11, maybe Chesney at 14, and chances are I'll probably keep Vinny at 15. So it's quite interesting how they'll go about it. But I would still, if I was Ian Foster, I would go with the same mentality. Let's try to blow them out of the game. And if we can't blow them out of the game, then go into a second tactic where what's our other options? Let's kick them. Let's organize our defense. But as you know, the Springboks don't stop. They'll come all day, and that's how we've won in New Zealand in the past. Is when we've actually made a lot of tackles. I remember what it was a Peter Steph to Toy. We made a massive lot of tackles. I mean, we've seen Warren Whiteley make a lot of tackles when we played in New Zealand. So it is down to that point where we know as a Springbok team we're going to defend, but now how can we control the other side? How is our counter-attack? What can we use to benefit the team?
Oh, fantastic. Jade, last comments. I mean, Vuyo speaks about the contact that the All Black players have had in 2 weeks' time, past 2 weeks, obviously in the Super Rugby final. The team that the Springboks have taken last week, the 12 players, I think it's 12 or 11, that they've taken to New Zealand have also been on a break, just like the Argentine players, because the Northern Hemisphere finished their rugby a couple of months ago, actually. And they've had pretty much no contact, just physical training, obviously, with their teammates. How would you look into this game and obviously prepare the All Blacks for the Springboks?
I would pull a Jock Nina by you and send 15 guys to Australia to prepare him for the Bledisloe Look Cup. Just playing. Just playing. I would go and really, really test my physicality. See what Samasoni Tokiawi is against Malcolm Wilkes, match him up. I would even be bold and throw in Phila at 6, just to see what he is at that level, because it's easy to test yourself against Australia, and we've seen that in the past with guys like Brazil, like Akira Ioni. But when they come against the big boys, when they come against the Boks and the Irish and the guys with character, it's a completely different game. And then those games where we start to talk about Jerome Kaino and what a big loss he was. So I would throw Phila, I'll give him a run at 6. I would even be bold and I would say, okay, I know what Bowden, I know what D-Mac can do at first 5 and fullback. Let's see what Mwanga and Will Jordan can do in that combination. I would try that, If you lose the game next week in Auckland, it's fine. But go and test character. Go and see what you guys can do with character against the rush defense, against the fire-up Bok team. And that's the only way you'll know, because that's what you're going to get against France. That's what you're going to get in the quarterfinals against Ireland. So I do have a question for my Irish friend over here.
You're in
what?
The finals.
I don't see. Sorry, Ireland's been playing brilliant. They're number 1 in the world, but this Bok team, they forward back. I don't see Ireland stopping them. But anyway, we'll get to that during the World Cup. But I have a question for him. Joe Schmidt, do you see his influence on this All Black team already, or is this Foster?
For me, it's got to be Schmidt, to be honest. He was the reason Ireland were so successful under his reign. And when you think about, like Foster, the amount of pressure he was under, like he's already been replaced after the World Cup. Yeah, they're still playing. Like, it's the old cliche, but a lot of teams, when they find out a coach is leaving at the end of the season or at the end of a cycle, they do, you do see a drop off in performance. That hasn't happened. So I would say absolutely that's down to Smith. He's an absolutely brilliant coach. And if you even just look at the All Blacks basics are always excellent, aren't they? But even I think that they've improved even more under him, and that's one thing with Smith and Ireland. Our the skills increased so much. We made so few errors, and even like the ruck speed in rucks, like we really protect the ball. Like we really just stuck to basics under Smith and executed them extremely well. It might have been a limited game plan, and that's probably why we didn't go all the way in major competitions. But the basics were extremely well. But we're talking about the All Blacks, aren't we? Their basics are always really good. But yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely Schmidt's influence, especially with Foster leaving after the World Cup.
Fair. Awesome stuff. Well said. Final question to all three of you. I just want one answer. Yes or no? We'll start off with our Irish counterpart. Is Eddie Jones under fraud watch?
Yes.
Vuyo, is Eddie Jones under fraud watch?
No. No, I don't think so.
Nah, mate, don't be a smart ass with me here. That's my question.
Well said, well said. All right, gentlemen, we've come to the end of our installment today. Thank you very much for joining. Looking forward to having our preview on Friday. And guys, thank you for listening in, and make sure you tune in to our preview on Fridays. I'll also put the recording up on my timeline so you guys can also get to listen to the whole conversation. Thank you once again to the gentlemen, Jade, Vuyo, and my Irish counterpart. Sorry, man, I keep forgetting your name. But yeah, hopefully we'll see you again next week, Friday. And everyone else, thank you for listening in. Cheers, and have a great Sunday.
Thanks, everyone.
Enjoy the under 20, enjoy the 20 semi-finals. Huh? They're happening now in the next 30 minutes.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, fellas. Bye.